Hi, welcome back everybody. In this video, we're going to take a look at Act 3 of Much Ado About Nothing. Now, Act 3 is where this stuff really starts to get good. So, if you remember back at the end of Act 2, Leonardo, Claudio, and Don Pedro all conspired to make Benedict believe that Beatrice was in love with him, right? And they deliberately had him overhear their conversations where they were like, "Oh, Beatrice loves you so much." Okay. Well, the second half of the plan, which begins in Act 2, or Act 3, sorry, Act 3, Scene 1, uh, is Hero and Margaret and Ursula, who are her serving women, her gentlewomen, are going to pull exactly the same trick on Beatrice. So Hero turns to Margaret and says, like, hey, go get Beatrice and tell her we're talking about her so she'll come listen to us, right? Which is so middle school, high school girl gossip, right? So and so's talking about you, come listen. Okay. So, of course, Beatrice comes and listens. And the whole conversation is about how Benedict adores Beatrice and he loves her so much, but he knows she's so proud, she's just going to reject him again, and she's so hurt from before, and she's so, just hard and cold, and she doesn't deserve a guy as good as Benedict, etc., etc., etc. And it works like a charm, exactly the way they expect. So by the end of scene 1, Beatrice has her little speech, which mirrors Benedict's speech from the end of Act 2, and she says, "What fire is in mine ears? Can this be true? Stand I condemned for pride and scorn so much? No glory lives behind the back of such." Oops, sorry. Oops, missed a line there. "Stand I condemned for pride and scorn so much? Contempt, farewell, and maiden pride, adieu. No glory lives behind the back of such. And Benedict, love on, I will requite thee, taming my wild heart to thy loving hand. If thou dost love, my kindness shall incite thee to bind our loves up in a holy band. For others say thou dost deserve, and I believe it better than reportingly." Okay, so she, again, just like Benedict, is now dedicated to showing her love to him. So now, we have the situation, and it's going to continue for the rest of the play, where Benedict thinks Beatrice loves him, and therefore he loves her back. And Beatrice thinks Benedict loves her, and therefore she loves him back, right? And within that, that kind of gives them permission to have their own feelings about it. So we've got all these dynamics. Now, we're going to go to plot A, which is getting ready for the marriage of Claudio and Hero, right? The young lovers. Okay. So scene 2 is another guy scene. And you'll notice we have a lot of this. We have a guy scene and then parallel to a girl scene. We've got the prince, Claudio, Benedict, and Leonardo. And the prince, Claudio's like, "I'll go with you," right? Because the prince, remember, is going home to Aragon. And the prince says, "No, no, 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 you stay here. I'm not going to mess up your brand new marriage by taking you away from your bride. That would be a stupid thing to do." And he's like, "I'll take Benedict because Benedict is just, he doesn't have any emotional attachment and he's just laughter all the time, right?" And then Benedict is like, "Well, about that." And then they have this teasing scene, which you knew was coming, right? And Benedict knew he was going to take teasing for this because he spent the whole of Act 1 saying, "I'm never going to be in love again. You can make fun of me if I'm ever in love again." And here he is in love again. We knew this scene was coming. Um, and Benedict pretends like he's sick or like he's got a toothache. Um, and his friends are making fun of him because he's shaved and he's gotten a haircut and he's in nice new clothes and he looks really good and he put on cologne, and they're like, "What's the deal? Why are you all dressed up? Is it a girl?" Right? So um, they have all kinds of teasing that happens in here. And so Benedict is like, "Look, I'm not playing with y'all. Leonardo, can I have a word?" And they step up to the side, and the prince says, "For my life, to break with him about Beatrice." So he's like, he's gonna go ask Leonardo for Beatrice's hand. And Claudio says, "'Tis even so. Hero and Margaret have by this played their parts with Beatrice, and then the two bears will not bite one another when they meet." Which is just great, right? That they've been bears the whole time, and now they're not going to bite each other. Okay, so the plan is working. Everything's going great. Until what we knew was going to happen, we already had the plan set into motion. Don John sidles up to his brother and insinuates himself in this conversation. Is like, can I talk with you in private? And of course, Don John says, you can talk, whatever you need to say, you can say in front of Claudio. Always a bad move, right? Always. And he's like, well, it kind of concerns him too, so okay. I know you think I'm a villain, but this is actually like I'm trying to do you a bit of good. Don't get married. It's gonna shame you. And of course, Don Pedro and Claudia are like, what are you talking about? Hero's a lovely girl. Her dad's great. Her family's great. What's your problem? And he says, listen, she's disloyal. In other words, she's cheating on you. And then there's this great line. Claudia goes, who? Hero? And Don John says, even she. Leonardo's hero, your hero, every man's hero. Good line, right? And so then Don John talks about how bad she is and how, like, slutty she is, basically. And he says, look, I know you're not going to believe me. So I can show you proof. Come see it tonight. And if you still want to marry her in the morning, go for it, right? At least you know. And so instead of going, this is coming from Don John who lied to me before, Claudio goes, okay. And Don Pedro, who should know better, also goes, okay. And they fall into John's scheming. Okay. Now, we're not actually, some productions of the play show us these characters seeing Margaret and Baraccio up in the window getting it on. And some don't. Because the whole play is about rumors and being overheard and seeing something and it not being what you thought it was and people lying and right, because the whole play is about that. Sometimes they never show us that. Sometimes we just hear people talk about it because it's just all rumors. And the next scene doesn't necessarily show us what they're seeing. The next scene switches to brand new characters, which is a little weird, right? Scene 3, Act 3, we're smack in the middle of the play. Why are we suddenly introducing new characters? Okay, the characters we're introducing are the City Watchmen. Now, if any of you are Terry Pratchett fans, the City Watch is pretty much a ragtag bunch of useless guys who are there as, like, not even really policemen. They're just like watchmen. And the people you stick in the night watch are the people you wouldn't, like, really put in any other job. So, in this scene, Dogberry's the head, Verges is his second in command, and then there's just, like, other watchmen who they're swearing in as brand new guys. Dogberry is an idiot, but he's a very specific kind of idiot. And Shakespeare's doing this in a grand tradition of malapropisms. There's a character in a play called Mrs. Malaprop who keeps using big words that she thinks make her sound smart, but really it's the wrong word for the situation. Or she's combined two words that don't make any sense. And Dogberry, I'll be honest, is not a great example of this, although some versions really play him very well and other versions really don't. He's a weird character. But if you imagine, he is one of those guys who would make YouTube videos about conspiracy theories. Like, he's that kind of guy. All right? And he would use a lot of big words that don't mean what he thinks they mean and call things science that are not at all true. All right? He's that kind of guy. So, he's the leader of the City Watch. Definitely the guy you want in charge, 100% going to solve all the problems. All right, so Dogberry is getting his men ready, and he's, are you good men and true? Okay, and then he goes off on what it means to be a watchman, right? And we've got the two new watchmen sworn in. Um, and most of this is just there for comedy. Now, these characters are going to be important later, but they're highly comedic and they're just goofy and they're there to sort of lower the tension. Just like in Macbeth, where the porter comes in right as a tension filled scene is getting set up, and he comes in and just like takes the tension down a notch so that it can be built up again later. That's what's happening here. Okay? They're also establishing these characters because they're going to be important. But basically, this scene is an establishment scene of Dogberry, Verges, and the two watchmen. And he tells the watchmen to watch outside Leonato's house tonight because there's going to be a wedding in the morning and it needs to go smoothly. Okay? Now, that's what you really need to know about the scene. Because come the end of that scene, as we get into scene nope, still scene 3. Still scene 3. Um, the two watchmen are on guard outside Leonato's, and basically they're like smoking cigarettes and drinking from their flask and having a nap on a bench. I mean, they're not great watchmen. But they overhear Baraccio talking to Conrad. Now, remember, Baraccio is the one who was just up in the window with Margaret, calling her Hero, putting on a show, so Don Pedro and Claudio would see it and think Hero is cheating on Claudio the night before their wedding, right? Now, Baraccio is A, kind of drunk, B, enjoying his power, and C, wanting to tell someone about it. And he can't just tell anybody, so he's got to tell Claudio. So, or Conrad. He's got to tell Conrad. He's not telling Claudio. Conrad. So Conrad and Baraccio are having this conversation, and Baraccio is telling him, like, hey, the plan worked. This is perfect. And basically, he confesses everything he did, right? How he earned from Don John 1,000 ducats for having an affair with Margaret and calling her Hero and confirming these lies, etc., etc., etc. And he tells how Claudio reacted. Okay? And here's the important bit. But know that I tonight have wooed Margaret, the Lady Hero's gentlewoman, by the name of Hero. She leans me out at her mistress's chamber window, bids me 1,000 times good night. I tell this tale vilely. I should first tell thee how the prince, Claudio, and my master, Don John, planted and placed, possessed by my master, Don John, saw afar in the orchard this amiable encounter. And thought they Margaret was Hero? 2 of them did, the prince and Claudio. But the devil, my master, knew she was Margaret, and partly by his oaths, which first possessed them, partly by the dark night, which did deceive them, but chiefly by my villainy, which did confirm any slander that Don John had made. Away went Claudio, enraged, swore he would meet her as he was appointed next morning at the temple, and there, before the whole congregation, shame her with what he saw o'ernight, and send her home again without a husband. Okay, so this is the whole plot revealed, right? The whole scheme. And the watchmen arrest them. They're like, we heard you plotting against the prince. That sounds like treason to me. We arrest you in the name of the prince. Okay, and they took Baraccio and Conrad to Dogberry. Baraccio and Conrad are very rude to Dogberry, and Dogberry's mad about it. But the 2 guys got arrested. Now, this is a comedy, right? So you would think, okay, they got arrested. They're going to go tell Claudio and Don Pedro that they've been tricked. They're going to hear these guys out, and the wedding will be saved, right? Because we had that little, like, slip earlier in the play, right? Problem set up, problem solved almost immediately. Here we have it again, right? Problem set up, problem solved almost immediately. Except the guy in charge of the watch is Dogberry. And he is, how to put this kindly, tedious. He's one of those people you really don't want to listen to for a long period of time. So that's going to be a problem. So just put that in the back of your head. We'll come back to that. Okay, still Act 3. I told you this is where it got good. Now we're in Scene 4. It's the morning of the wedding. Hero is with Margaret and Ursula, her maidservants, right? She sends Ursula to go wake Beatrice up. She's getting ready for the wedding. We have some back and forth between Margaret and Hero about fashion and how a Hero's gown is so beautiful. And then in comes Beatrice, and Beatrice has a head cold. Sure, she does. Every time they mention Benedict's name, she sneezes. Hmm. And this is so anime, right? So then her friends tease her by saying, "Oh, you have a cold? We should get you some Benedictus. That's good medicine." And of course, you know, um, Cardus benedictus. So that's like a scientific name for a plant. And remember, they would use like homeopathic natural remedies at the time, right? So they would take like rosemary or dill or, things like that, and they'd make teas with them to help you feel better. So she's like, "Here, take some of this benedictus and put it on your heart." Um, and they tease her with it. And then Margaret, who thinks she's going to be the next Beatrice, basically, because Beatrice is like calmed down now and she's not as snappy as she was. So Margaret thinks she's going to step up and be the funny one. Um, and she's not very good at it and she kind of annoys everybody. But she's right. Okay. Then in comes Ursula and tells them, like, everybody's waiting for you at the church. Let's go. Okay. Now we are almost done, but not quite. Now we've got scene 5, right? And remember, parallel scenes. So we had the ladies getting ready, and now they're leaving to go to the church. And now here we have Leonardo, who's getting ready to walk his daughter down the aisle, right? And he's getting ready for the ceremony. And in comes the last person he wants to talk to, Dogberry. And he's polite to him, but he's really like, "What do you need? What do you want? I'm kind of busy. Tick tock. I got a daughter to walk down the aisle. Make it fast." And so Dogberry says, and Verges is there too. He's like, "I'm an honest man. I see this as a busy time. Can I talk to you?" And Leonardo says, "Neighbors, you are tedious." And Dogberry misunderstands and thinks it's a compliment. "It pleases your worship to say so, but we are the poor duke's officers. But truly, for mine own part, if I were tedious as a king, I could find it in my heart to bestow it all on your worship." All your tediousness on me, eh? So Leonardo's like, "Okay, well, what's your problem? What do you need to tell me?" And they say, "We've arrested two men, two bad men." And they're like, "Okay." And Leonardo says, "Look, I don't have time for them now. Go interview them yourselves." Right? Now, this is the key problem, right? If he had gone to interview these guys, he would have found out the plot and the plan. Problem solved. But time's short, and Dogberry's boring, and Leonardo doesn't really want to listen to him, so he's like, "Look, handle it. Handle it. Come tell me what they said later." And then the messenger's like, "Hey, we're waiting on you." And Leonardo leaves. And Dogberry and Verges are like, "Great. Well, let's go interview them." And they feel really good about this, that they've been trusted to interview these guys. But we know, as readers, oh no, the ceremony is about to happen. Claudio doesn't know the truth. Everything's going to be a disaster. So we end Act 3 with two of our lovers, Benedict and Beatrice, starting to come together, right? But Claudio and Hero, who were together, are about to be pulled apart at like their wedding. So go through, do your character notes. What are their connections to each other? What are their involvements in the different plots and plans and everything else? And then meet me back here and we'll do Act 4. Until then, bye everybody.